Black, Ontario.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable colleagues, I rise today to highlight Black History Month and the role that Black Canadians have had in agriculture. Every February, Canadians are invited to celebrate the many achievements and contributions of Black Canadians who, throughout history, have done so much to make Canada the culturally diverse, compassionate, and prosperous nation it is today. Agriculture is one of Canada's oldest industries, has a history as vast and diverse. Agriculture existed on these lands long before Confederation. Indigenous peoples across the continent farmed the land for centuries before the first Europeans arrived. Later, French Acadians found the Maritimes particularly suitable for marshland farming and dairy production. Unfortunately, very few studies have examined and analyzed the historical role of Black Canadians in agriculture. Black farmers have a long history in Canada, going as far back as Guysborough, Nova Scotia in the late 1700s, Buxton, Dresden, and Queen's Bush here in my own area in Ontario in the mid to late 1800s, and Amber Valley, among other smaller communities in Alberta in the early 1900s. Despite the many hardships they faced, including racism, a lack of access to modern farm equipment, and the harsh Canadian winters, just to name a few, these small settlements of Black farmers became successful and independent communities. However, important stories of Black people in agriculture have been neglected by mainstream accounts of Canadian history. This gap in history speaks to how Black farmers, among other racial minorities, have been positioned within the narrative of Canadian agriculture. As a senator from rural Ontario with deep roots in the agricultural industry, I think it's high time that we re-examine the historical narratives of our nation, especially as it relates to land use, and ensure that the stories from all walks of life are celebrated in a country as diverse as Canada. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight the recent announcements by Beef Farmers of Ontario and Grain Farmers of Ontario. Last month, both organizations issued strategic statements committing their organizations to a new culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion. As is noted in a passage from the Grain Farmers of Ontario statement, diverse life experiences, backgrounds, and ideas at the table make organizations stronger, and finding ways to make the inclusion of everyone systemic will benefit every organization regardless of industry. We all have a role to play when it comes to inclusion and working to end discrimination within the agricultural industry. I could not agree more. Colleagues, I hope you will join me not just this February, but all year round in making sure that the stories of all Canadians, regardless of race, ethnicity, or sexual orientation, are honored, shared, and remembered for years to come. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Senator Cordy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Senators, this past year has allowed many of us the time to reflect on our contribution to this world and how we choose to carve our space in it. This can take many different forms, but I am of the opinion that our greatest hope is that we leave the world somehow better. I'm delighted once again to be able to celebrate our colleagues who have made a difference and who have been recognized as trailblazers because of the good work that they have done and continue to do. Senators Bovey, Gagne, McCallum, and McPhedran have all been honored by the Nellie McClung Foundation as part of the 150 Manitoba Women Trailblazers. This comprehensive list spans the decades to include Nellie McClung herself, who, as we know, was one of Canada's most famous suffragists and was a driving force in Canadian politics and in securing the right to vote in 1916 for most Manitoba women. This list, however, does not only recognize politicians, but women, or a collective of women from many different fields who have contributed greatly and made an impact on the development of Manitoba. It is incredible to read through this list of recipients, not to mention the longer list still of nominees. It is not surprising that there are so many women doing so much good work within their communities, and I am delighted to see these women recognized and lifted up because of their work. Honourable Senators, while I could share with you the accomplishments of our colleagues and those who have been named in this list, and there's quite a lot to share, but what they have done is not the most important part of having earned the title Trailblazer. The most important legacy of any trailblazer is the path they leave for others. And so, while I admire the wonderful
and Slaughter, a business and community leader, Samantha is dedicated to educating Nova Scotians about the cultural significance of Black hair and beauty. Sylvia Paris Drummond, CEO of the Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute, which is dedicated to Afrocentric learning and research, won the RBC Women Entrepreneur Award in the social change category. Tara Reddick, nationally acclaimed Antigonish playwright, actor, mother of four, received the Frank McKenna Center for Leadership Racial Justice Leadership Grant at St. Francis Xavier University for her uplifting Black women podcast series on experiences of Black motherhood and activism. Celebrated spoken word poet Andre Fenton released his second novel, Annika. Kelsey Jones, director of Dalhousie Law School's Indigenous Blacks and Mi'kmaq Initiative, recently accepted the Canadian Bar Association, Nova Scotia chapters, Excellence in Equity and Diversity Award on behalf of the Institute. Halifax City Councillor Lindell Smith has been appointed as the new chair of the Halifax Board of Police Commissioners. Finally, the Reverend Dr. Rhonda Britton became the first woman of color to be the president of the Canadian Baptists of Atlantic Canada.